There have been a lot of interesting quotes coming out of the Warriors organization this last week since the big trade in the draft. And some of it has been kind of subjective. You may have to read between the lines a little bit, and some of it has been very direct. Let's start with something that was definitively said from both Steve Kerr and Mike Dunleavy Jr. That is, we know we need to add another big body, and preferably a big body who can shoot the ball. And so Dub Nation has been sitting around trying to figure out who exactly can they get with just offering a veteran minimum contract. And I think we all understand this is no longer 2017 where this is the premier ring-chasing destination. There are a handful of teams that could make that claim, right? Come to us, and this is your best chance to win a ring. Phoenix, Miami, Boston. I'm probably leaving a few out there that think that way. I also think that it's interesting if you think about it, like, let's take Dame Dalla, a.k.a. Dame Diva. You hate to see it, right? But, like, let's just say Dame were to join one of these power teams, even though he doesn't really want to or whatever, right? But where would you go if you were a, quote, ring chaser? Which team would you get the least credit for getting a championship on? It'd be the Warriors, right? It'd be Steph and the Warriors because they've had four of, in the last decade. Right. And so there's that element of it as well. The optics probably don't help as far as a guy trying to hop on and get a ring with the Warriors, even if there are other teams that are more stacked. So let's break this down into a couple different categories of big men that the Warriors could be looking at here. And we'll start with the stretch bigs because that is who I think they are targeting initially. Let's start with Yuta Watanabe. Did I butcher that? I probably did. But we talked about him about a month ago, right? 6'9", 215, played with Brooklyn last year in kind of a breakout season, shot damn near 50% from the corners from three-point range. He's efficient, he runs the floor, high motor, and he just screams Warrior type of player. So I think he's got to be atop the list when we're talking stretch bigs. I think the concern would be, can he really guard up? Right? He can spread the floor and play the four position, but if you're playing a bigger team, does he solve that issue? Can he defend the paint? He gives you some weak side shot blocking, but he still sits atop my list as far as stretch bigs go. Number 2, Dario Saric is a name that's been connected to the Warriors several times. 28 years old, spent last season in Oklahoma City. Started in Phil. He was a lottery pick, right? Philadelphia to, was he in Minnesota? He's moved around a bit. Phoenix had him. He had the ACL, and then he moved on to OKC. But the bottom line is he shot about 40% from the three-point line the last 3 seasons. He's a rebounder, a spacer who can play the 4-5. He's a more physical guy, so I don't think there's as much of a concern. He can guard up. He can be that big body in there for you. And I think his greatest trait is an offensive hub. You think Andrew Bogut those years ago, where he can work the handoff action. He's actually a little more versatile than Bogut. He'll handle the ball and do some things, but I think that you can run some of the second unit stuff through him, and it's his offensive versatility, his passing and system fit that are most appealing. Defensively, he's not going to provide rim protection. He is a bigger body. He can give you the 5 fouls, but I don't think anybody's considering Dario a stopper on that end. Number 3, how about George Niang, the minivan, right? It ain't pretty, but it gets the job done. It'll get you there. First was on the map in Utah, and then it was interesting. When he became a Philadelphia 76er, he all of a sudden he got way more aggressive, right? It was almost like he took on the personality of the city, the Philly, right? And he's a career 40% three-point shooter. And what he would basically be is a super version of Anthony Lamb. I think he has a similar game to Lamb, but he's more refined, he's older, more experienced, and he's just a little better at all the things that Lamb does. And I think his greatest trait is he's kind of a bully. Like I said, at least he was in Philadelphia. He'll get in guys' faces, he'll bark, and he kind of brings that juice, that toughness and energy that every playoff team is looking to add. Number 4, how about Mo Wagner? Originally drafted by the Lakers, right? Wizards, then went to play with his brother in Orlando, where he kind of had a role last year. Despite them being very deep, he gave them 10 and 5 in 20 minutes last year. But is he actually a stretch big? He's one of these guys where I don't know if the numbers tell the story. He's a career 31% three-point shooter. Do you remember him at Michigan? Another Michigan guy. I think he's a better shooter than the numbers say, but at the same time, he's been in the league long enough where at some point here, the numbers got to add up, right? But I think that he's a guy that you at least have to come out on. He can take the three and he'll be above 30%. I think in a spacing system, I think he's a better shooter than what the numbers say is what I'm getting at here. And I think his greatest trait is he's an energy guy, a rah-rah guy. A lot has been made about the bench or lack thereof and, how the young guys just, we missed the Juan T's and the Damian Lee guys that were rah-rah energy, good bench guys like that. And I think no doubt Mo Wagner is that guy. And then he fits the bill as a high energy stretch four who would shoot it better. He'd shoot it better for the Warriors. I know he would. Number 5, Thomas Bryant, who is 26 years old. By the way, Mo Wagner is 26 years old as well. I didn't give his. I got some notes here for these stats here. Now, Thomas Bryant is an interesting dude. Originally, was he a Laker? Undrafted, maybe. Had a breakout year with the Wizards, and then he tore his ACL. But if you look, he hasn't played that much, man. He's had an injury-riddled career. I'm looking here. One season, 18 games, 41, 27, right? But when he has played, he's been very effective. He's basically shot 40% from the three-point line. And if listing these 4 or 5 stretch bigs, he's probably the most talented, right? He probably has the highest ceiling here at 26 years old, but it hasn't come to fruition. And there would be a concern maybe like, does he pick up the system? We all know it's not easy for bigs to figure out where to screen and where to go with it. But as far as just physical attributes and talent-wise, if you took a flyer on him, it could be a home run move. So let's move on to the true big list. Guys that aren't necessarily going to stretch the floor, but they are true centers. They're going to clog the paint and just give us some much needed size, right? And so number 1 on my list is Mason Plumley, 32 years old. He started last year in Charlotte. I was salty when the Clippers got him. I don't know. It was some sort of contract flip dump thing. They basically gave up nothing for him for a half a year. And he's just a really good passer, a really good rebounder, gives you some rim protection. And I think, his trait that sticks out most to me is the super high motor. You don't usually get a 7-footer who just plays that hard. And I think he would fit the Warriors system and come in very useful in these matchups against the Lakers and Denver in these bigger front courts. So he would be number 1 on my list at 32 years old. The timetable fits, right? Number 2, how about Jacques Landell? Was in Phoenix last year. I heard the Athletic boys bring him up. What is he, 27 years old? And here's the issue. He outplayed Ayton last year. If Suns fans know this to be true, it wasn't just the playoffs. It was like the whole second half of the season. And so you'd imagine Phoenix is going to try to retain him. The problem is he's at a point in his career with just 2 years in the league coming over from Australia. He's probably got to go chase that money, right? But, maybe I believe his mentor, Andrew Bogut. Maybe Bogut could send him our way, or Chris Paul, something like that, right? But he is a true 7-footer, and he has the typical Aussie toughness, right? He's going to be in there throwing elbows, being physical, pick and roll partner, and just an overall solid backup big man. Number 3 on my true big list, how about Andre Drummond? How old is he now? 29 years old, going to be 30. There wasn't a lot of publicity about this because the Bulls weren't really relevant towards the end of the season last year. He actually left the team for mental health reasons. So first and foremost, Drummond, hope he's good. And, he's got to be wanting to play basketball, But I think you guys are familiar with Drummond. He is, listen, as goofy as he can be, he is one of the most dominant rebounders of this era. It sounds kind of crazy to say, but the numbers say it. He is an elite rebounder, a high energy guy that will run the floor. I think that the question would be, does he fit the system? Could he pick it up, right? Because he's kind of erratic and I don't think anybody's accusing him of being a high IQ player, right? But again, the offensive rebounding, can you imagine him? You take out Looney. Looney has 12 first half rebounds and in comes Drummond. The offensive rebounding alone, I think, makes it intriguing. And then he's not a 7-footer, but he's a big enough body and athletic enough that he can guard true bigs and give you those 5 fouls. Now on to my third category, I'm going to just call pipe dream, right? Guys that it just doesn't seem very realistic. But again, it'd be a dream scenario if the Warriors could somehow pull it out. We talked at the top about how it's no longer the top ring chasing destination. And then also you have to look at these guys and say, well, what is their priority, right? And that starts with Kevin Love, a player that you remember, when was it, 2014? Was it before he went to Cleveland, right? Remember that? Y'all remember the trade? The OGs remember the trade. It was going to be Klay, Draymond, and picks, I think, for Kevin Love. And Jerry West was like, no, sir. No, sir, right? Thank God. But he's been connected to the Warriors all the way back to his Minnesota days, and he finished out the season in Miami as their stretch 4 or 5, and he continues to be able to shoot the seams off the ball, and he's just a natural rebounder, right? You question durability, but in a limited role, he fits the bill. You know he's going to fit in. You know he knows the Warriors system, and I think the hope would be maybe, hey, come back to Cali. He's a California kid. Hey, come finish out your career with your childhood friend in Klay Thompson. That would be the selling point, right? And it's, I call it a pipe dream, but I wouldn't be floored if they were able to nab him for the vet minimum. Much more of a pipe dream would be Brook Lopez, right? 34 years old. I saw a quote from him the other day. They're asking, where do you want to play? And him and his brother, they're weird dudes, right? They're kind of quirky. And so that is what gives me hope, is because I think they think outside of the box, and I think that their priorities, I'm grouping them together. That's not fair, but I should say, but Brook's priorities may not fit in line with the typical NBA player. And the quote from the other day was, hey, I want to play in Seattle, right? And I was like, hey, well, you want to be in the Pacific Northwest outside of the Blazers, the Bay is pretty damn close, right? And so, I don't really have a reason why he would want to come to the Warriors other than the proximity, the location, the Bay Area, and perhaps maybe just wanting to play with Steph, right? But the thing is, Lopez has had, I believe, 2 max deals or near max deals. He got the ring with Milwaukee, so he's not a ring chaser. But I'm not sure he's going to chase the money either. I think he's the type of guy at this point in his career where it's going to be a combination of reasons why he chooses his destination. But y'all know who he is, right? He is the most, he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year last year, but he was amongst them, right? The shot contests, the ideal drop bigs, shoots the 3, and he's just reinvented himself into one of the more ideal modern big men today. And so that would be a home run, right? I had Vucevic on this list, but in the last 24 hours, it said he's going to go back to Chicago 3 for $60, which seems about right. What is he at? That's, I guess in the new, moving forward into this new deal, I guess it's right. He's been a disappointment there. I'm kind of surprised that they're bringing him back. I thought that, hey, the USC product, maybe he'd want to come back to California and have one of these make good deals, right? And so I had put him on the list, but that looks like it's out of the question. Here's a sleeper. How about Christian Wood? Now, Christian Wood, listen, when you often hear me say, read between the lines. And when you read between the lines of Christian Wood, everywhere he goes, as excited as the fans and the team are to have him, very quickly they're not, right? And then all of a sudden he moves on. And so it seems like that's kind of a Christian Wood problem. I don't know what it is in the locker room or the work ethic. The talent is undeniable. And how old is he now? Do I have that written down here? I don't. I'm guessing he's around 30, right? He had a late start to playing, right? Started in Detroit, Houston, bounced to Dallas last year. Jason Kidd wasn't messing with him, right? Jason Kidd didn't like him, but I don't think that that's necessarily an indictment on you. Kidd's a fickle coach, to say the least. But what if the Warriors were to get him on a Dante DiVincenzo deal? The same deal, the same thing they had with Dante last year. Hey, come sign cheap for us 1 year and prove to the league what you're worth. Prove that you're a winner, because that's the knock on Christian Wood. Everyone knows he's a talented, modern big man, right? But it's like, dude, can you be a part of winning, right? And so that would be the sales pitch to Christian Wood. Come be part of a winner on a 1 year prove-it deal with the Warriors and Steph Curry. Just a thought. But then again, he might be one of these guys where internally the Warriors, they just don't want to touch. They don't want to bring him into the locker room after, they're trying to clean that up already, right? Cam Reddish, same situation. Portland, not going to extend his qualifying offer. Not necessarily a big. Now I'm jumping outside of bigs into just some other names that are floating out there that I think might be interesting for the Warriors. Cam Reddish, the third of the big three at Duke with Zion, Barrett, and there was Cam Reddish. Atlanta fizzled out. Portland picked him up. He was in New York. Tibbs wouldn't play him, right? He's just one of these guys where you're like, I see the talent, but it's not clicking wherever he goes. And I think for him, it would be like, hey, we're going to put you in the Andrew Wiggins classroom, and you're just going to play behind he and Kuminga. Now him and Kuminga, that might jam up minutes, but we just want you to be an elite defensive wing and shoot spot up threes. That's all we're going to ask from you. We're going to teach you who you are in this league. Just a thought. Couple more names here for you. Eric Gordon. Is Eric Gordon finally going to put on the Warriors uniform? I feel like we've been flirting with Eric Gordon for 10 years, right? Hey, he and Chris Paul can reunite in the backcourt. Y'all know who he is and how prolific of a shooter he is. I think the question is he washed? The Clippers, they waived him and they saved a ton of money. It seemed kind of more like a money move than a, hey, you're washed Eric Gordon move. It was a value move. And so, hey, if it's the veteran minimum, I don't think anybody's complaining on taking a flyer on Eric Gordon and letting him just be a vet on this bench. That's the timetable and the age. And again, all these guys kind of came up together playing. Another interesting name, how about Taurean Prince? I guess he found out yesterday from Twitter the Wolves were like, deuces, homie. Kind of a surprising move. Now, I guess it's because they committed so much money to that front court with the Naz Reid extension, right? But Taurean Prince, I don't know, man. They keep trading away their kind of like Rough Rider tough guys. I thought Beverly was a really good fit there, but I understand that the thing with Beverly is like he wouldn't allow Ant to be the real leader. So I understood getting him out of there. But Taurean Prince, he's a Baylor product. And Baylor, like Villanova, you know what type of player that's going to be. Baylor's going to be high energy and some toughness, right? And he's a versatile veteran wing that would slot in perfectly. I imagine he's hunting more than the veteran minimum. But again, that sales pitch of coming to the Bay and being a part of something special. But let me know in the comments if I left somebody out, or give me your top 3 realistic rankings. It doesn't have to be bigs, but I think we're all assuming that's what we need to add here. But give me your top 3 in the comments. And then things are going to pick up here, midnight. We may have to wait a while for as far as to fill out the bench because, the big names and dominoes have to fall first. And the Draymond news, hopefully we get sooner rather than later so they can push on. And I know, what was he having dinner with Dame the other night in Portland and receiving Dame's pitch. And listen, Clutch has done a good job, I think, of generating interest around the league. I think there is genuine interest, but I think Clutch has also upselled that as well. But the truth of the matter is this, to me, he owes Steph. Like, fine, like you think Draymond's going to be able to look Steph in the face and say, I'm going to Portland to play with Dame after what y'all have done together? I ain't buying it, right? But I'll be back as the free agency news starts to hit. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.